And I thought I would just sort of invite you in on some of my morning routine, not that you care. But I'm going to start out by making some coffee with this Flare coffee machine. And this is an espresso machine. And so hopefully you'll be able to see something. I'm heating up the hot water. And I started with some, this is a Starbucks French roast. Some dark roast. It doesn't taste all that great, but it's good enough. You know, in this day and age, you take what you can afford. You take what you can afford. And this was gifted to me, and so that's great. I like coffee. It's my favorite thing to have. And wait, I'm having a hard time starting the fire, so we're going to go there next, but I need to do one other thing first. Maybe one is curious as what does Bill eat in the morning? And so I'm gonna go over that as well. You know, not that you care. So I heated the water up to 205 degrees. This is a hand-pressed espresso maker. The brand name is the Flare. I bought it in the fall of 2020. You push the handle down, and there it goes. So it drips out. Looks like somebody's tried to call in. I don't want to put them online, so we will do that. So there it is. Now, this is like the best tool that I've ever bought. I mean, I think I paid almost $200 for it in, like I say, like it was the fall of 2020. I've tried every method conceivable to make a good cup of coffee, and this is the solution. This is the best device I have ever, I can say that ever, as far as making home espresso. And I just give it a little bit of a wash over here, you know, clean it out for the next time. And then we'll just take this tool here, this thing here, and I'll reset it. It took me a couple years to figure out what to use this for. Nowhere in the instructions did it say that this is how you reset your cylinder device, so it's like it's a pressure chamber. Now I'm going to go about the day of making a cereal for both me and the other person here. So don't mind the mess. It's relatively clean. This is a glass of water and psyllium husk. That's what that is. Yum, yum, yum. That's what everybody likes in the morning, huh? Psyllium husk and water. It has a consistency of like a paste or something. Look at that. Fiber. I think this is like 7.5 grams of fiber here, soluble water fiber. When I woke up, I usually wake up and I'm never hungry. I mean, I suppose that's a bad sign, but I was kind of thirsty, so I thought, oh crap, my blood sugar is high. Frog spawn, yeah. Doesn't it look like that? It looks like it could be like slime. Psyllium husk. Yeah. Goes in there, it's kind of like a paste. Yeah. Well, anyway, so this is what I typically have for a a breakfast for somebody with pre-diabetes, though I think that my blood sugar is actually a little bit higher than normal. And these are a sprouted, is this some sort of cooking at home? I swear. No, this is Christmas Eve, and I just thought I would take a viewer on a ride to how some old fool, what they do in the morning. And in this stuff, you got to soak it out. So this is a sprouted, this is sprouted rolled oats, a gluten-free sprouted rolled oats. You can get it from Costco. And then I start adding some things to it. Like, I'll put a little wheat bran in there. Actually, this might be GMO, but the other one's non-GMO. This is not a cooking show per se, but it's just, what does somebody eat who's pre-diabetic? And this here I'm adding is some wheat bran, because I'm really just upping the fiber content, trying to get myself up to that, that 30 to 40 grams of fiber every day. And then I think we'll add some chia seeds. I got these chia seeds at Life Source in Salem. It's a high-end grocery store out of their bulk section. I usually buy I'm just going to put, this is a tablespoon and a half, and I'm going to put in a little bit of this over here and then the rest over there. You know what? It does, but the weather here is so terrible, and I actually started out with like being on an exercise bike for like 10 minutes. Now I want to add some sunflower seeds, some raw sunflower seeds in here. So you want to get your healthy fats and proteins and so forth. Now this one is really loaded down with stuff, and so I don't think I'll add anything more to it. And then we'll come on back. We'll just back up and get the backup view. Walking a lot does help, and getting lots of exercise helps, yes. One of the things you have to contend with as you get older is blood sugar issues. Now, I don't really like regular milk. I can't abide by the taste of milk. I can't handle the smell of milk when it is in its uncooked form. So I had found this, I think it's just loaded with sugar, this flaxseed milk. It tastes super sweet. I tried it yesterday for the first time. I'm going to add in this flaxseed milk. Super tasty though. Oh, there's one other ingredient that I need to add to this in order to make it more so that I'm not going to want anything to eat until like 6 or 7 or 8 o'clock at night tonight. And this here is a shelf milk that I got at the tribal food bank. It's a shelf-stable milk, and I got that at the tribal food bank. I bought this at some random grocery store. I thought I would give it a try. I had never heard of flaxseed milk anyways. So we'll go back up. So I limit the amount of mess that you get to see. Actually, it's not so bad in here. Okay. Go there, go there, there. All right, so I come back here to my cup of coffee, and I'll just give it a little taste test. Oh, it's very tasty. Yeah. This is really tasty stuff. You gotta love that coffee. You know, before the tariffs on coffee and the raising, I had good coffee every day. It was a roaster out of Silverton, Oregon, and they made the best coffee. But the second best coffee that I found out on the market is it's this. This stuff is $22 for a 2-pound bag. Actually, that coffee I had was more expensive than this stuff. And so this is probably the most economical coffee that I've ever found. Traders Coffee, Shade Grown, Espresso, 100, so $22 for 2 pounds. So it's $11 a pound. That's the cheapest coffee that exists on the market today. And anyway, so we're gonna come back over here. Wait, there was some, hello Maria, welcome. And all right, I need to add some proteins and fats to this. A little bit better proteins or whatnot. So I'm going to, I guess I got some nuts ground in here already. So we're just going to add some ground nuts. I think these are pecans. And so I will just throw some on here. Just kind of throw them in there. Who doesn't need more nuts in your life? I know that I was talking about goo yesterday, nutrient goo. Well, I have some nutrient goo. So if Jeff is out there never watching things, and this is goo. Goo. Who doesn't like to have goo in the morning? We'll just have some of this goo. It doesn't taste like anything. It has actually zero taste. When I first started with, yeah, that's oatmeal. When I first started making this psyllium husk goo, I put like lemon in it, but now after about 3 months of 3 months of the psyllium husk goo, I just have it plain aloe vera. There it is, it's gone. And maybe we'll just give this stuff a little stir here and just let it sit for a while. But maybe it needs a little bit of, maybe it needs some, I have it, that's it, what I'm looking for is over there. Okay. These are fig pieces. I also got these things at the Tribal Food Bank. And I'll just add a couple pieces onto here. You know, figs are really good for you. They got lots of good fibers in them and stuff. And so we're just going to let this thing sit right here, soak up the fluids, and there we go. So that way, if you heat it up, then those fibers are more accessible and turning right into sugar. And so what we want it to do is we want it to have it so that most of those fibers are not digestible. So we're going to go over to this other location, and my fire keeps on, it's not really burning that well. It's really dark because this is winter time now, and winter is very dark right now. So this is what, December 24th, Christmas Eve. I don't have a Christmas tree. I didn't buy a Christmas tree this year. Actually, I usually have been, for the last several years, I've been getting the Christmas tree at the tribal food bank, but they didn't have one this year. Or if they did, it was on a day that I didn't go. And so here's my wood stove hanging over there on the wall is clothes that my dad wore all the way up until before he passed on. So, you know, I have a lot of things here that are my father's. So we're just gonna take this old paper bag, and I'm gonna try to get this thing to, the fire is burning, but I want it to burn a little hotter. It's kind of cold in the house, but it's too cold for Mama, but it's not necessarily too cold for me. And it's funny, this fir wood doesn't burn as good as the oak did. So this will get going here in a second. And then I'm going to go sit out and look outside, look at my light. That's also something I do in the morning. Then I just sit in the quiet and I breathe, and then I go do some chanting prayers. I don't know if they do any good or not, but I do. I'm not going to really bore you with that, but I'm going to go do some reading here. I'll just read it to you instead. So you love the stove. Well, that's the stove. I think I'm going to lower this down just a tad bit more. This tripod is so cheap. I need a light clamp on it, and I also figured out that I need a blood sugar monitor that works. They advertise those no prick kinds, but I haven't been able, I bet they don't work at all. They're probably just like trash. You have to do the kind where you test strip and prick your blood and everything, and so, oh, here's a mask that I destroyed a year ago when I had it in the oven for too long when I was drying it out. Now we got some things on the wall. Yeah, those are hunting rifles. The top one is an antique. Somebody owed my dad some money and didn't have anything, and so they gave him this antique shotgun that's like from over 100 years ago. It has a rolled barrel. This barrel is for black powder. It's a black powder cartridges. Now, my father This was his shirt. I keep it around. It from Reed College. Reed College is where he went to school, got a degree in physics a long time ago. He was born in 38 and he died in like 2012. And there are his work pants. And so these are just things that are his that I've kept, that we've kept around. It kind of just feels like, you know, your loved ones are still here. You know, it's not like that you see that their presence is still here, but their things are still here. And so if I go over to this other picture, this is the other wood stove, and those were like his boots. I still have his boots someplace. Looks like ugly and scary. Yeah, I haven't really been using it. It looks kind of like an alien mask, but that's kind of what it is about it. But so that picture was taken a long time ago. We're burning wood in the yodel stove. I was probably like a kid when that picture was taken. And yeah, so we'll just kind of go over here and maybe I'll turn the camera around, but we'll go look outside. This is the outside view. If I turn the light on, I'm going to drown everything. This is one of my pieces of art that I did years ago. I like this one. I haven't had the heart to sell it. Oh yeah, it looks like it was 2022. I did this in 2022, and I love how alive this thing is. I guess I can turn the light on here. How it just looks like it's alive. It's a living thing. And those thistle things are actually the inspiration for this. I keep this here. And, all right, I got some, you know, you need to see all this stuff, all my clutter. Anyways, will this blind you guys if I turn on this light? This light is a light for people with seasonal affective disorder. If you're like get depressed in the wintertime, you go look at that light for a while. And so that's something that I do. I look at the light. Oh, my coffee's back here. That fire's still struggling. And anyways, this cord is hanging up on things. So then another thing I kind of do in the morning is I spend time going into the Zohar. The Zohar is Jewish mysticism. I am of Jewish descent, even though my mother's father was a German Jew. I don't know how much Jew, because when I did my ancestry test, it didn't show very much in there, but it was there for a brief moment in time before they recalculated. But it just, anyways, I like the fact that it showed that I had a little Jew in me for a brief moment in time, anyways. Because when I went to Israel a long, long time ago, I felt so much at home with that culture. And then I look at all my icons and all that art from the first century and the second century, those early times. All that stuff kind of makes sense to me. You know, and at one time I could actually, I studied Hebrew a long time ago. I got to where I don't remember much of it anymore. I don't remember, but I look at it and it's not like a foreign language. It doesn't look foreign. It looks like something that I once knew. That's what it looks like. And so I was studying Hebrew in college because I wanted to get a PhD in essentially religious studies. My plans in college from like 1992, around that time, 1992, it was, I actually wanted to go to seminary, actually. I wanted to become a pastor. And I didn't want to become a priest, but you know what? I've lived my life, a celibate life. I could have easily have become a priest or a monk, and it would not have been that big of an issue for me. And so, anyways, I do live a fairly celibate life. It doesn't, at this time in my life, it doesn't really bother me too much. Oh, Megatron. Yeah, well, that's me without my hat. Yeah. And anyway, so I was going to do, I was going to go do a little bit of some reading out of this book for you. Not that you really care, but anyway, I'll turn the camera around. Well, no, I will just leave it that way. I'm just having my morning coffee. Megatron. Is that Megatron like that's Metatron is the one that's the angel, and Megatron is one of the Transformers. I used to read the Transformer comic when I was a kid. I didn't like it as well as I liked like the Amazing Spider-Man or E equals MC squared. Yeah, I was just talking about Einstein in my live show yesterday afternoon. You know, when you buy a bad tasting coffee, you actually got to put something like pepper in it, crack some pepper in it to make it taste good. Maybe we'll go do that here in just a second. You got to drink that coffee down like it was booze, you know, just slam it down. This is my second espresso today. They're not like you know, when you go into a coffee shop, they're like a 20-gram shot. This is like, I think that I put about 7 or 8 grams of coffee grounds into the little brew head thing. So it's really a light brew, and then, you know, being that times are hard and coffee is really expensive, I've learned how to brew it less strong. Anyways, so this is, I study like Gnostic Gospels. I like for some reason I feel like the Gospel of Thomas and some of these other ones are more truer. Maybe it's because there's relatively no narrative to it. But you know what was interesting? Because the other day when I had this sort of an insight. Now, this insight was insight to me, and then when I, you know, talked about it to another psychic, oh yeah, exactly, that's exactly what goes on. And so I was thinking, well, how divination works, and how tarot works, and how all these things work, is that it activates your imagination, and through your imagination, you can see into the human superconsciousness, and you can access information that is there because well, of course, that's just sort of the theory. That's the theory. It could be just all bullshit for all I know. You know, all made up in my head or made up in heads because I get a whole lot of time to, as a caregiver for my mother, who's going to be 86, I get a whole lot of time supervising a person's care, looking out the window and being at peace and in the quiet, having a greater sense of oneness with that out there. And that out there is also in here. And so there is a sense of a continuity, a sense of being a part of a entire whole system, and not a sense that we are islands unto our own, though we like to think that way. But that's not necessarily how it is, because we are part of a whole. It would be nice if the turkeys were here, but it's a little bit too early for the turkeys, or it's really dark outside is what it is. And so there was this one saying in the Gospel of Thomas, number 70. I'm going to read that to you. I'm in the secret book of James and not in the Gospel of Thomas. We'll go read all of the Gospel. So this is from saying number 70. And if you've actually never seen these Gnostic Gospels, this is the oldest intact Gospel that exists. It is the Gospel of Thomas. Now it's almost entirely intact. Now some of them just have what they had is when they found these Gospels, these writings, they in Nagamani, Egypt, and there are some other places that they found these ancient books that were hidden from the church, because when church became the church institutional, as churches today, they went through and they went to squash all the dissenting voices, and the Gnostics were part of the dissenting voices, and there was not an orthodoxy coming straight from, if there ever was a Jesus time. It was a heterodox. That means there was multiple orthodoxies. There were multiple paths that people were following and calling themselves Christian. It wasn't just Catholic Orthodox liturgical style. That was one strand, but it wasn't the only strand. And so there were a lot of different things. So in saying 70, Jesus says, if you bring forth what is within you, what you have will save you. If you do not have that within you, what you do not have within you will kill you. And so what this is supposedly it means, what this means is that the kingdom of God is within. And that's one of the things that Jesus taught. It's in the Synoptic Gospels too, I think, is when you have thy kingdom come, thy will be done. Now, I know a lot of people don't like this, but I like this. And this is, my channel is things that I like. And because if you do stuff that other people complete, you do, then you don't have I don't know, it's about sustaining power. But anyways, what this kind of means is that you have that love of God, or whatever that means. I don't know if that's the right word for it. We use that word, but that's the only word we have. We love through service of others. Love, love do unto others as they would have them do unto you. If you want to be treated like shit, then you can treat your neighbor like shit. If you want to be treated well, with respect, well, then you have to respect other people. And so what you bring forth from within you, if you bring forth from within you that spark of divine light, and you act out of that, well, because that's the word we were taught. Yeah, that was the only word we know. And so we start with what we know. And it feels like my fire went out again, so I got to go work on that some more. And you bring forth that which is within you and bring it out of you. And so if you are acting out of, let's say, fear and lack and anger, well, and you bring that forth, well, that's kind of something that's going to kill you in the end, kill your spirit, because it disconnects you from that. It disconnects you from that out there. All of that. If my 5G was better, I would take you out for a walk. But I'm in a little valley here, and this is a really narrow valley. And even though the cell tower is just over that hill, it still doesn't get great service right here. It sucks because you spend a whole lot of money. You spend a whole lot of money on things like your internet services and your cell services and all that stuff, and then you still get crappy service. But let's take a little bit of a reading from the secret book of John, because chances are you may not have ever heard or even heard anything from the secret book of John. Of course, this is a English translation, and this is actually very fascinating. It's very theoretical. It's an extremely theoretical book, and I'm going to be reading from chapter 2, which is the second codex, and I think that means that it was on the scroll and how it was laid out. I think that's what codex mean. I used to know that. So it is the invisible spirit. One should not think of it as a god or like a god, for it is greater than a god, because it has nothing over it and no lord above it. It does not exist within anything that is inferior to it, since everything exists only within it. It is external, since it does not need anything, for it is absolutely complete. It has never lacked anything in order to be complete. Rather, it has always been absolutely complete in the light. So they're talking about the prime source, that thing that cannot be described, this prime source, and it is, let me turn my light back on. It is complete within itself, and it is a sense of a non-duality, that the prime source that is everything, it is the all, it is just light. It is nothing else other than light. There is no darkness in it. So if it's a duality, then it has a darkness, light and darkness. But this monad, this one that this, attributed to this John guy, the secret book of John, does not know how to describe it. He saw it in a vision, in a transpersonal experience. And that's one of the things about when I had a transpersonal experience. I've had several when I was younger. It really made me understand. I got an understanding of Scripture that you don't get from just listening to church leaders and so forth. And so the insight that came after having a transpersonal experience is a psychological term for you've had a religious experience, you've had a mystic experience, you've had experience with something beyond yourself. Something beyond yourself. And when you have that experience with something beyond yourself, it is very difficult to describe it. And so you might spend your whole life trying to describe it in words, and you fail. And so that's why I don't see the Scripture as without error. And so I'm just giving some instructions here. And so anyways, in the secret book of John, he's talking about this experience that he had. And who knows who this John is. I don't know who this John is, because oftentimes what happened in those early days, in the first few centuries, that when a person, they attributed these writings to an apostle or a disciple of Jesus in order to give it authority. So when they call it the secret teachings of this or the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, it may not have been written by that person. It may have been written by somebody like 100 years later, or from stories that they heard, or because in the past, people's memories for the oral tradition were way more, people remember, they were kind of like human computer storage devices. And maybe in our day and age, you can't remember anything, and our memories are stored externally. They're stored in books. They're stored in computer chips and in data. That's our world. But in their world, they remembered these things. And so in this, I'll just read a little bit more, but that was just a little bit what I've read. It is the invisible spirit. One should not think of it as a god or like a god, for it is greater than a god, because it has nothing over it and no Lord above it. So it is this primal source, the starter thing. And if we think of like in cosmology, astronomy, and they think that there was this beginning point where everything was packed in a singularity, well, that's kind of what this is like. And everything that was in this singularity. It wasn't dark. It was just that. Maybe it was dark because you couldn't see it, but there was no observers to see it. And so in the beginning, it was just that, whatever that was. And, once you see it, maybe it would be like a light. Maybe it was like trapped in a black hole and it was totally unseeable, but inside it was just energy. And it was just that. And there was nothing else. For it is greater than a god, because it has nothing over it and no Lord above it. There was nothing else there. That was it. That was the only thing that was there. It does not exist within anything, for it is inferior, because it does not exist within anything that is inferior to it, because it's just one. In the beginning, it was just one. And that's it. It's kind of hard to really think about it, but this is what you're just trying to put into words, something that cannot be put into words. It does not exist within anything that is inferior to it, since everything exists only within it. It is eternal, since it does not need anything, for it is absolutely complete. It has never lacked anything in order to be complete. Rather, it has always been absolutely complete in light from the secret book of James, and I just wanted to share that with you. And then I'm going to go about my day of it's Christmas Eve, and I got to work on that fire and get it going better.
Fire going?
All right. All right. Well, I'm going to get on with my day, and I know because I was talking to someone else, and so I turned the camera off so you didn't have to hear the other conversation going on. Anyways,
Hold in here.
okay, I gotta go. My time by somebody's yelling at me, so I need to get. Yes, somebody's yelling at me, and you don't need to hear that. Somebody's yelling at me, and anyways, I've got to go, and my job is beginning. Bye-bye.